I'm always so wound up by the injustice that's taking place that I'm seeing every day that I can't turn that off. The culture of mental health in different communities. The Asian community, as an immigrant coming to America, oftentimes is really difficult. And regardless of how you're feeling, you gotta work through it and you gotta figure out how to make a living for your family. Growing up, mental health wasn't in the conversation really, you know? It was never something I even considered. To even think about counseling being an option, one, it is seen as a sign of weakness. Two, it's not accessible. And three, if it is accessible, it's not someone that can relate to you because they're not from where you're from. They haven't lived what you've lived before. So how can you trust that they're gonna be the ones to talk you through it? To open up to somebody and talk about how I'm feeling, I have a mental block against it just because I can't really imagine what it's gonna do for me, I guess. I don't know, I'm scared to get in my own head. For me to spend a lot of time focusing on my own mental health feels selfish almost, but I mean, I'm open to doing it now. So for self-help, to be honest, I don't do enough and I know that, but the one thing that I do is write poetry, and I only really write poetry when I'm trying to understand the root cause of the feelings that I have. Every single line is something that I've been thinking of for hours, and I'm learning a lot about myself along the way. But to be honest, it's not enough because I just don't do it often enough. To understand me would be to understand that I'm not looking for anything for myself. I'm looking for people to be with me for the community. Especially because of the issues that are affecting people like me now are such real world issues like racism or police brutality, all these things that we can't just think away. I can talk to someone about it like a therapist, but I'm gonna walk outside and it's gonna be the same problem, right? But with the community, it's like we can be open about how we feel about things, we can talk about it, we can express to each other how it makes us feel, and we can probably bond over it. And there's more love in the community side, I think. Ultimately, what I wanna find is a way to balance the dissatisfaction with how things are, which drives me to keep going, with a contentness or being able to relax a little bit, because I'm always so wound up by the injustice that's taking place that I'm seeing every day that I can't turn that off. Essentially, the issue is that when a family member is having a mental health crisis, they call 911, they're calling for help. But what happens is police officers come, they really just kind of approach these calls with more aggression than love or help or trying to actually be there for that person. They're trying to be there to restrict that person. If we acknowledge the fact that mental health is a real issue and it's a health issue, we cannot treat it like a crime. If you're gonna have such a large police budget, you should have enough money to just hire a few social workers and have your own mental health service as part of your unit. I mean, it's just really hard for me to understand why that's not something that is being done more often. That feeling healed to me would really mean still doing the same work that I'm doing, but being able to do it while finding happiness in my life. It starts with acknowledging that there's a problem. And I mean, I never even talked about mental health until Cheatcode came across. If you don't acknowledge that you need help, then you're not gonna get help.